but Kenyans as well. Let's delve into these matters now. Joining me in studio is Dr. Churchill Saoke. He's a leadership and governance expert. Thank you very much for joining us here on KTN News Desk. Do you think this is a good idea?
This is a very good idea. And I think it is an opportunity for us as a country to go back to our consciousness and ask ourselves, what really do we want for this country? And in terms of building value systems that forms the foundation of leadership in this country. And I think that if well implemented, we can set a good foundation that will influence politics in the next generation.
Yes, we've had there's various reactions to this. Some have welcomed it like you are. Some have said this could be political witch hunt because, you know, we are heading into party nominations and this is always said to be the main election, even if our election is coming in August. Do you support that? You know,
Akisa, I honestly, in as much as I feel this is in good spirit, but I have to say that the implementation of this must really be, we must be very careful and be very honest. The reason why I say this is because, think about it, we are implementing this very good procedure 6 months to the election. How we implement this will determine whether we promote the genuineness of leadership and integrity, or we just advance political witch hunt to removing out opponents of certain bigwigs. So the agencies must be very careful on how they implement this, because ideally it's a political season, and you can't stop people from thinking, that you know, I'm being removed from the list because I'm popular and somebody is being favored. So I think that is my very pessimistic view of this process.
So wait, are we saying there's a possibility of political interference to this process?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, we've seen it before. Many of the agencies based on past experiences have always been infiltrated by politics. So what is IEBC and the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission going to tell us that this time round they are going to follow the due process of the law? That if Raila Odinga, if the president, His Excellency the President, do not meet the bar, they're going to be removed out. So, I mean, this is the level where these multi-agencies should reach. So it's not just a question of looking at the small fish.
The small fish.
And saying that, you know, you are the small fish and, you know, you took 200,000 from a kitty, so you are not fit for leadership. Yet somebody took this much money from somewhere and is not being... So we must be very honest with the implementation of this thing from the top to the bottom, just so as we instill that culture, even amongst young people who are growing up and want to get into leadership. Children who are looking at this whole thing through their screens will generally have the view that to get into leadership in Kenya, you must not free of corruption, you must be free of hate speech, you must also be free of many other undoings that are against ethics.
Apart from integrity, what are some of the other issues that you think this multi-agency will be looking at or should be looking at?
I was really hoping to see more proactiveness from the National Integration Commission, because for me, I really feel that this country, the progress of this nation is being retarded by the politics of ethnicity. And if this multi-agency could also be incorporate the National Integration Commission to ensure that any person who has been dividing Kenyans along tribal lines, and there is evidence to ascertain that you are not fit for this country. I mean, we got bigger issues to deal with in this country other than the game politics of which tribe. And I mean, these things are nonsense. We have a lot of things to deal with, of lifting the livelihoods of our children, you know, coming up with programs that give the ordinary Kenyan the very basic needs. And so issues of hate speech and incitement, that is some other thing that I really feel that should be incorporated. The question of education is very key. In one of the books that I wrote, The Cry of Nations, I highlighted the importance of intellectual criticism in leadership. Because an intellectual views things without bias. You have an evaluation that is based on physical data. And with that, you can make a judgment for the country based on information that is anchored on theory and practice. And so that aspect of education for me is also very important.
Yeah.
But then again, how the agency is going to implement it, that is something else that, you know, it's up for us to.
And speaking about education, we know one of the governors, Mombasa County Governor Ali Hassan Joho, is currently facing allegations of having fake certificates. He's not the first leader we've had who's faced this. Kabete Member of Parliament Ferdinand Waititu has, Mike Sonko, the senator for Nairobi, has, and this is the season where it is said leaders forge their certificates. So how will these agencies go about their business to ensure that we have leaders who don't have fake certificates? Because it's happened time and again.
You know, when you look at the reforms that have been happening in the university sector, that has been championed by the very able Minister for CS for Education, I think that the Commission for University Education is able to ascertain, and I think they got a criteria of the credible institutions whose certificates are worth really the credibility of being seen, you know, at the, of a university education. And I think that if they are able to use some of the Commission of University Education genuinely, and this is on assumption that there is no witch hunt, because, you know, sometimes we can, you know, the law, you can always bend the law. If I want to remove your kisa from the race, I will bring even the things that you did when you were in her primary school. So, but the whole thing is the question of honesty and genuineness of doing all these things. And so that whole thing of education, there is I think right now Kwe has come up with quite strict guidelines that, you know, you cannot just get degrees anyhow, which for me is really a first step towards some of those faking of those degrees and things like that.
You've talked about honesty and genuineness. Do you think this will honestly be incorporated into this particular exercise?
I think the exercise, and this is why I really believe in institutionalism. Politics will come and go. Elections will come and go. People will win, people will lose. But the dignity of this country is beyond elections. The sanctity of this nation, the future of the children is beyond this, is beyond the election. And I think that there is need for sustainability mechanisms to be established by these multi-agencies, so that we say that next year, in January, if, for example, you have gotten yourself into something that violates ethics, and Chapter 4 of the Constitution on integrity, then we remove you from office, and this now becomes like a process that is continuous. Think about what happened to the former Deputy Chief Justice, Nancy Baraza. You know, we had reached a point where if you're a public servant, even the whole thing of using the wrong lane on the road is illegal. And for me, this is where this multi-agency should go to. Bringing sanity in various areas, various sectors in our economy, and saying that if you have stole people's funds, you are like a terrorist, by the way. Because there are people who are suffering, yet you have money that you don't eat. And so you should not hold leadership positions. You should not even engage even with any issue to do with the public. But this requires certain, what I will call, sustainability mechanisms of this agency beyond the elections.
What you're talking about, as the leaders we shouldn't have, almost half the leaders we have are what you're talking about. So what does that say about our current caliber of leaders, and going forward, if this multi-agency gets its job right, what do we expect?
It's going to be tough, I have to admit to you, because, you know, we are talking about the leaders, but this whole thing is also deeply rooted amongst the people. Because sometimes the leaders behave the way they behave because of the expectations of the people. Think about it. You get into a public office, and after 5 years, when your term ends, or after 10 years when your term ends, or 7 years, you go back to your village, and you served the people well, you develop very good policies, you didn't steal any money. You go back to the village and people begin asking you, look at him. He was in government for 7 years.
And didn't do anything for himself.
Didn't do anything for himself. So it is a whole thing of culture that will require not just this whole formal multi-agency operation, but some leadership that drives the inspiration. some inspiration, you know, a leadership that drives this process with inspiration to the people, that say, you know what, you got to think about your grandchildren. You got to think about this country in 40 years. You got to think about what matters much more. And think about it. I tell many of my fellow young people that, you know what, you might be working every day. You might be working every day, you want wealth, you want money, you want what, but think about it. What do you need really to live a happy life? Very basic things. And this is what some of the countries like Japan did. Japan asked themselves, what do we need? Minimalism. We need clean water. We need electricity. We need gas. We need healthcare, all right? We need good schools. And so once a citizen is able to get all this, and you're also able to get food, you don't need any other thing. You don't need any other thing. You can focus on building your country. And you put value as a country, you put value not on wealth acquisition, but on value generation that drives innovation. Because this is what will take Kenya forward to compete with countries like Uganda and Tanzania and the rest of the other world. Driving innovation. If you are able to come up with an innovation that brings production to the country, then we leverage you and make you be seen well. Okay? But so these are some of the things that for me, I think this multi-agency must consider in not just dealing with these formal processes, but also driving the inspiration to the members of the public.
All right. Okay, we're getting back into that discussion.